Hey, welcome to another episode of the Manufacturers Make Strides podcast. I'm your host, Martin Griffiths, and today I'm interviewing Paul Myerscough. Paul is an experienced MD of manufacturing companies, both small and large, including the seals and gasket manufacturer James Walker. Paul has walked the walk. He's encountered all of the challenging experiences that leaders face. And with the knowledge he's gained, he now supports leaders to do the same through a combination of coaching, advising, and leadership. In our interview, we covered all sorts of things, from how best to implement culture change in traditional organisations, through to how to get and what are the techniques to get the most out of your team members. So why don't we get straight into the interview now?
Hi there, Paul.
Hi,
How are you
Martin.
doing today?
Very good. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for joining us on the podcast today. So just wanted to get started with, how did you get started in manufacturing?
Well, I did an old-fashioned apprenticeship. So I started back at British Aerospace, as it was then, in Preston, and went hands-on the tools into manufacturing machining. I worked in the largest machine shop in Europe, and then I worked in the largest design office in Europe. So it was great. It was a good time, and I did my INCs and HNCs alongside that, So yeah, I got an understanding of the real world of manufacturing, if you will.
Yes.
Hands-on.
Yeah.
And that's really been pivotal, I think, in my career. So I took that through into design. And after that, after I've done my agencies and a bit later, I eventually left to do a management degree.
Okay. So what were some of the key things that kind of formed you to where you are today over that, kind of key experiences or key people that helped you get where you are today?
Yes, I suppose the key thing for me has always been, if you like, the seeing how very often people can be underutilized at work. That the old adage of leaving the brains at the gate. Because they're not engaged, the culture isn't there for people to participate in improving the place.
Yes.
So I suppose that whole thing around that has stayed with me, and how to engage and motivate people and get the best out of people, and get businesses on to growth and world class. That's what's really driven me over the years.
Do you think there's been a change in that over the years? And do you think the people who are starting to come up in manufacturing businesses now are kind of more involved or more committed than maybe 20 or 30 years ago? Do you see there's a change?
That has been a big change. Yeah, I mean, it's been on the one hand, things are a lot less formal than they used to be.
Yeah.
Things are less hierarchical than they used to be. However, there's still a lot of companies that either they're laissez-faire in underlying, or they're so short term they don't really invest in developing the people. They invest in engaging the people, invest in the processes and improving things. And there's still quite an awful lot that are still pretty traditional, that are still pretty top down. It's easy for leaders to get into the mode of telling people what to do and believing that, that they're, these guys, as long as we keep an eye on them, they'll do all right. But, we've got to constantly watch them, and we've got to make sure we're clear about what there is to do. And it's that sort of attitude perpetuates a culture where people are not really that interested, and people are not. You don't get the most out of people.
Yeah. So what do you think the key principles are of good coaching or leadership to get the most out of people?
Well, one is being human.
Yeah,
and
it's a good start.
engaging people at an emotional level. We're all
Yeah.
emotional beings,
Yeah.
and we've got to connect emotionally as well as factually, if you like.
Yeah.
And another key thing is asking open questions. So if you're leading in with a coaching style, it's about asking open questions and being
Okay.
curious, and avoid rushing to suggesting what to do all the time. It's so
Yeah.
easy to do, you know.
Yeah.
You might know the answer or think you
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if the people are to develop and gaining confidence and ownership, then it's better to get them to come up with the answers themselves wherever possible.
Yes. Yeah. I suppose even if you think you know the right answer, it's leading someone to get to that point themselves by their own kind of volition is better than you just kind of saying this is the way it is. You know, be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think like the best companies or the best leaders in the companies have coped with the past, with all of the changes from the past year? Like 2021, we're hopefully coming to the end of the big impacts of COVID. What things that's caused a lot of changes in all sorts of businesses. How have the best people coped with that, do you think?
The best people have been open about it, and they've engaged people around what the uncertainties are and what the challenges are, and they've just been real about it. You know, and work with people and communicated well. Not keep people in the dark. Working from homes can be great, but it can be a nightmare if you're in your own little world and get all your energy from being with people.
How do you think that will change going forward? You know, manufacturing is a bit different, isn't it? Because like obviously the people involved in production have to be there and have to be part of the team. Do you see how do you see the future, you know, now for manufacturing companies?
Yeah, I mean, the people hands-on in production have got to be there, of course.
Yeah.
But a lot of the ancillary people around the edges, you know, and on the sales side and administrative side, have been doing a lot of work remotely, so haven't had that same engagement with manufacturing. I mean, I'm sure there'll be more of a balance going forward, a bit more flexibility. And, you know, I don't think it'll ever totally return to what it was before, because there was a great understanding that, it can work actually, this increased flexibility, working from home. Before there was a lot of suspicion and just inherent belief that, well, it'll never work. Or it can't work effectively. But now I think there's greater recognition that genie's out of the bottle, if you will.
So some kind of hybrid way forward where there's like still the communication, you know, still the get-togethers and the communication within the team, but a bit more flexibility, basically.
That's right. A bit more flexibility.
Yeah, great. So just thinking back to coaching and leadership again, how do you think data plays a role in helping people to motivate your teams and to get better results?
Well, this is the opportunity to bring the yin together with the yang, you know. So this is typically, you might see people in an oversimplified way as, you know, your engineering data orientated geeks on the one hand, and your sort of touchy-feely talkers on the other side of the equation. Well, you know, we all have both those aspects in us, and it's just a question of to what extent. And what we can do is use data to bring the two together to improve the business. So, you know, what I would do is an example is, let's say, choose a problem to solve, or, you know, a performance to improve, whatever that is. And then set up some data collection if there isn't already that data there, and often there isn't. Set up some data collection, some measures, you know, and get people involved with that wherever possible. Get them involved in collecting the data about defects on a particular process or output over a period of time, or whatever performance we're talking about, and then create a run chart, so just a line graph of what's happening over time. But the great thing about a run chart is that you can see trends, right? You can see variability.
Yeah.
I'm sure many of your listeners will be familiar with the great Dr. W. Edwards Deming, the father of the quality revolution, really.
Yeah.
And he was very famous for not only the Plan, Do, Check, Act, or Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle, improvement cycle, but also for understanding how to use data to improve processes. And with a simple run chart, you can understand the difference between a common cause and a special cause. So, for instance, if you drive to the office every day and time yourself, well, it won't be exactly the same time every day, will it?
Yeah.
Vary by seconds or minutes.
Yeah.
And if you plotted that over time, it would just be going up and down a little bit. But then if there was some roadworks or a crash, all of a sudden the time would suddenly dramatically extend and be a big peak.
Sure.
So you can see that, and that's a special cause. So it specials happen. The rest of the variability is caused by the system, if you like.
Yeah.
So it can talk to you anyway. You can use that data to talk to you. So that's one thing. But then also collect that data down to the point at which you can break it down by category or first level causes. So then you create a Pareto chart. So you're using basic problem solving, basic data collection. Now it's time to bring people together in your team around that. This is the opportunity. So, rather than just working on it yourself, get the team together and engage them in that process of problem solving. So start to ask them open questions. If you're leading with a coaching style, a lot of it's about asking open questions.
Yeah.
It's also about being in the same space psychologically as the people around you. So be aware of their emotional state and their engagement, and touch base with that. That's the human side of it, really. Now have a bit of fun with it, and in doing that, getting them involved, asking open questions. Ask the what, the when, where, how, and you would use some basic techniques, a fishbone diagram. What's the cause and effects? What are the possible causes? Then get people involved in developing actions. By the way, be careful with asking too many whys, because the classic one is 5 whys, isn't it?
Yeah.
But why can often sound like an accusation.
Yes. Yeah.
And puts people on the defenses.
Yes.
You've just got to be a bit careful with the whys.
Yes.
But engage people with those, finding those actions, and try and avoid rushing to suggesting the action. Ask them open questions to say, okay, and how would you go about doing that? Or what do you think the effect of that might be? What sort of things could happen as a consequence of doing that? Just do a bit of digging, a bit of exploring and clarifying, and help them with their own thinking through that process. Because that way people feel like they're being listened to, feel like they're part of it, and they've made a difference.
Yeah.
Because people love a juicy problem to solve. Most of us enjoy solving a problem.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity to have some fun and enjoyment at work by making a difference.
Yeah. So you think it's that combination of of the data plus the open-ended questions, kind of probing people's creativity that helps to get everyone engaged. You know, you mentioned before, like the data heads and the creative people. You think it's that, you need that combination.
And emotional engagement around that. You know,
Yeah.
so those three aspects: the data, the open questioning, curiosity, and the emotional engagement around it. And then bringing that, following it up, tracking the results, letting people, making it visual, letting people see that, and involving people in that. And when you get some results, allow people to feel good about it.
Yeah.
You know, celebrate it.
Yeah. So have you got an instance of that you're really proud of from your career where you've done implemented something like that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, there's a few businesses I've been involved in where I've implemented lean principles into a company and got a lot more engagement. So, you know, like at James Walker, where we changed the culture from being very top down and paternalistic to one of getting a lot more people involvement, leadership style that engage with people more. We implemented 1,700 improvement ideas.
Wow.
Came from the teams.
Wow.
They're at 1,700. And a lot of that was around, you know, a structured process of just engaging people around problems.
Yeah.
The same principles apply in business strategy as well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the strategy of the manufacturing operation or whatever it is. Use the data, involve the people, and you know, get that motivation and direction.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you, in that example of James Walker, how do you implement such a dramatic culture change to, you know, so successfully, where at the end of it you've got those 1,700 kind of things to successfully implement?
Yeah. Well, it is a journey, right?
Yeah. That didn't happen overnight.
How to eat an elephant.
Yeah.
But you key way of leading transformation is starting with the why. Simon Sinek said, start with the why. What's the purpose? What's the driver that can engage people? James Walker, it was turning the tide of past failures and lack of progress, and engaging people then in that journey. Uncover the waste, you know, get some measures in to uncover the waste.
Yeah.
Build a coalition of people that are going to support you in leading that journey. And listen to people, talk to them, understand what the stones in the shoes are. And then when you develop a plan with actions to deliver that new purpose and goals, then make sure those are included. So they're listened to, they're part of that.
Yeah.
And then make that big change part of doing business week to week, month to month. So it's part of your regular meetings. It's always on the agenda. It just becomes the way we do things around here.
Yeah. I see. Yeah.
That makes sense?
It does. So are there any like specific tools or techniques that have really helped you over your career recently, or implement change like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously quite a few. You know, there's the whole lean toolkit. You know, the whole value stream mapping stuff. There's obviously all the data and basic statistical things that Deming teaches us. And there's you know, there's the strategy side of it, I suppose, which is making sure that what we've got is something that's linked to the core purpose of the company, and there's a series of projects that all go in the same direction. So a great tool to use to make sure that happens is policy deployment, or goal deployment as I often call it. use an X matrix to link the goals to the strategies to the strategic projects,
Okay.
and then a whole bunch of alignment of people's objectives to those projects.
Okay, so I guess that would help with the example you gave before, because I was thinking if you've got 1,700 improvement ideas generated, I imagine they're going to be in all sorts of areas, all sorts of directions. I guess it's important to make sure that you're keeping focused on, a specific business goal rather than, chasing everything in all directions.
Yeah,
So
you're right, Martin. That's crucial. You need focus and alignment. So if you start with your goals and then line up your core KPIs, your projects, your actions to focus on those goals, then that's the way to keep people aligned, really, and make sure their objectives are linked.
Okay. So when you're just thinking back through to how that works, then say you have 2 improvement suggestions from guys from the shop floor. One aligns with your current goals, so you decide to pursue it. Another, possibly equally good improvement idea, but it doesn't align with your goals, so you decide not to pursue it now. What's the best way to handle that with the people who suggested those? Because again, you want to keep them both motivated, don't you?
You do. Well, first of all, if you've done it in a data-focused way, around problem solving around data, then it's naturally going to be focused around what you're aiming to do.
Yeah.
Because you've focused the whole question around that.
Yeah.
If you've just generally gone out and listened to people and what their thoughts are, then yes, absolutely, you can get all sorts of disparate suggestions, right?
Yeah.
So some will be really left field.
Yeah.
So, however, clearly you've got to be honest with people and say, well, that doesn't really fit with what we're going to do now.
Yeah.
Like the idea, but
Yeah. Okay. So better way is to kind of give them the constraints first, that we're looking for ideas in this area to help achieve that goal. And let them go away and come back with the creativity around that. Yeah.
The other angle, though, is if it's something, there's usually you get a number of things that are just little tiny things that matter to the individual, don't matter to the big picture at all.
Yeah.
Really. The stones in the shoes, as I call them.
Yes.
And if just do it.
Yeah.
Because then they feel like they've been listened to and they're getting something out of it.
Yeah.
So just remove those kind of frustrations and blockers to the thing, because they're easy to do.
Yeah. Great. So do you have any favorite book recommendations for people who want to kind of learn more about the kind of things we've talked about today? Yeah,
well, if you're talking about, of course, data and improvement, then Out of the Crisis, my Dr. W. Edwards Deming, of course, is a classic, or some of the books that are about him and his approaches. That's great. If you're looking for something more about leading transformation, then Cotter is good. His step strategy development and deployment, the sort of transformation process is good. So but there's some great coaching books out there as well that I would really recommend. One's Coaching for Leaders. I'm trying to remember the author, but I'm not sure if I quite can. There's a few out there, but there's a coaching manual by Julie Starr and Business Coaching Handbook by Kaylee Martin.
Okay.
But there's a few good coaching books out there, and for any leaders, I would recommend that.
Yeah.
Because there's one thing, of course, being a coach. I'm a qualified coach, and doing that independently of a role, and that's a full-on holistic process. But you can use a lot of the principles just by leading with a coaching style, and that's what it's particularly useful for.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Appreciate those. Yeah, I'll have to check some of those out. Those sound brilliant. So if anyone wants to find out more about what you do, like what's the best, how do you think you can help people in the manufacturing space, you know, whether they're a CEO, manufacturing director, manager, what do you feel you can help them with?
Yeah, I can help them with helping them be their best selves, you know, be their best you, enable them being their sounding board, being their coach, to go through a process of improvement on the one hand, but equally I enjoy getting hands-on as well, you know, facilitating improvement, strategy development,
Yeah.
and helping them make it happen, you know. So you know, I just enjoy making a difference, taking companies from A to B.
Yeah. Amazing. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you then, or find out more about yourself?
So they can get in touch with me through email. It's paul@business-transitions.co.uk, or equally on my mobile, which is 07595930239, or on LinkedIn, of course. Yeah. Everyone can get hold of me on LinkedIn. There's not too many Paul Myerscough on there.
Great. Perfect. Well, thanks a lot for your time today, Paul. That was really interesting to cover some of the lessons and things that you've experienced in your career. That was brilliant. We'll put the contact details in the description of the video and the podcast afterwards. So all of those links will be in there. We'll also include some links to those books that you mentioned as well, because some of those sounded brilliant. So yeah, thanks a lot for your time today, Paul. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure, Martin. Thank you very much.
Take care. All the best.
Bye now.
Bye.